Hey guys, Cinder Ash here, and welcome to my Cinder Ash Psyker build. Quite literally, because this whole build revolves around Soul Blaze and what Soul Blaze can do to basically infinitely loop your entire build into being more or less unstoppable in most situations. There are a couple situations where you won't be that great, but there are ways around that kind of fix it and negate it. So you're pretty much good to go throughout most things that you do. So let's hop right into the build and see what makes it so good. Starting off, your melee does not matter. You can basically take whatever you want. I, again, am just using this because I don't really care. It's okay, but most of the time you won't be using your melee because you'll be using your Pergatus Force Staff and your talents. So using a melee weapon is never going to be a necessity in this build. So if you don't like melee, this is probably perfect for you. This is probably the build you want. What you do need is a Pergatus Force Staff. And what you need from it are going to be Carapace and flak damage, because infested enemies and everything else will basically get nuked and you won't need to worry about how much damage you're doing to them. As well as Terrifying Barrage is an absolute necessity to the build. Pressing enemies within an 8-meter radius on close range kills with this weapon is very good at keeping hordes and everything else away from you or from your teammates and hurting them. Except for monstrosities, but your teammates more than likely are running builds just as crazy as this one that will allow them to deal with the monstrosity while you hold down the hordes. You also can take Warp Flurry. I think it's really impeccable and crazy on how much you can do with this. When it stacks 3 times, you basically almost have a 30% charge time reduction on your chain secondary attacks, which just turns you into an automatic flamethrower while not generating a ton of peril. So it's pretty good, and I like it. And again, Curio's max health is going to be what you're want to be aiming at. Anything with damage resistance, remember, you can only have one of them that is like a sniper. You can't have like 2 or 3 snipers because they don't stack. So as long as you have one of each perk that you need, good. I have some for fun ones like Ordo Dockets, and that's not great. If I could, I'd reroll this, get something else, but snipers, combat ability, really good. Ally revive speed, because again, you gotta expect your teammates to go down every once in a while on Auric Damnation. So this will help with getting them back up on their feet, as well as gunners, mutants, stuff like that. Bombers, tox flamers, anything that can overwhelm you a lot, as well as corruption resistance, all very good. Hopping into talents, things are gonna look a little weird, but they'll make sense as to why, and they'll be very loopy. So if you ever seen the Russian Badger meme about the MG1 Grand Pings and how it gives dopamine, it's kind of like that. You're gonna be looping a lot of the stuff into the same thing, so that way it's just a giant cycle of I get this happens, that happens, because this happens and this happens to give me back what I need, and I'm back to where I started, and I've gained a bunch of resources for it. So we're going to start with metal. Critical hits replenish 5% toughness, since we're under 100 toughness. Instead of being 5 toughness per critical hit, it's going to be about 4 toughness per critical hit. But it also gives increased move speed, which is great for getting out of sticky situations and just getting toughness back in general. And because the Pergatus, Flame Staff, and Soul Blaze crit a ton, this is going to be really useful for getting that toughness back. Perfect timing gives us more warp damage for our critical hits, stacks 5 times. So, 5 times 3, you're getting an extra 15% warp damage, which is great for your Brain Burst, which is already really, really strong. Again, Quietude, replenish 5% toughness for each 10% of peril quelled. Again, more toughness regen, which is great because then we're coupling it with Battle Battalion, where you have a 10% chance to quell 10% peril, which gives you the toughness back anyway. Next up is the bread and butter, where the build starts kind of rolling in on itself. Perilous Combustion, killing elite or specialist enemy, applies 3 stacks of Soul Blaze to nearby enemies, causing DOT. So that means that anything that's Soul Blaze, including our Pergatus Staff, because that's coded as Soul Blaze, it coats to everything else, and then it just kind of stacks on top of each other and does a lot of damage and infinitely scales with how much damage it's doing. We have to take this toughness because we're taking Brain Rupture for the very specific reason of Kinetic Resonance. Using your combat ability makes your Brain Rupture charge 75% faster and generate 50% less peril for 10 seconds. which is going to couple with other stuff later that I will explain when we get there. But we want this one. All attacks have a 10% chance to hit the brain rupture on targets. This cannot occur while at critical peril and has a cooldown of 15 seconds. So essentially, this just automatically pops every 15 seconds. Because this is popping, we want the extra 15% warp damage coupled with the bonus 50% from the brain burst into brain rupture upgrade, which just does a ton of damage. So we want more peril generation in the negatives, so we want more resistance to it. We also want wildfire because we want more soul blaze stacks. Now, you can also take Psykinetics Aura, and I will explain why you don't have to. It's simply because whenever you kill anything in general, and whenever you use some of the perks down later on the list, that extra 5% that you're getting for each elite or specialist kill is actually going to cycle your skills too fast for you to be able to manage realistically. Even at high tiers of gameplay, it's going to be too fast. So I actually recommend against this because you'll be just clicking too many buttons way too fast. Like you're trying to play Overwatch or like Valorant or something crazy where you're just constantly clicking buttons to make sure you're doing something. And it's not worth it. The toughness damage reduction is required to take to get to kinetic presence, which is again another 5% damage on top of everything else. So we're up to like 70% bonus brain burst damage, which means that it's doing around 2,750 damage to about 3,000 damage per brain burst. One with the warp is required here because we want that base toughness damage reduction of 10%. And then because we're almost always going to be at a really high amount of peril, 33% toughness almost all the time is really, really good. We're skipping lucky for some because we, again, are not expecting our teammates to go down. But we have safety measures in place, such as the 10% ally revive speed if we need it, but it's not required. We're grabbing this 5% peril generation because we want to get venting shriek, which quells 50% of our peril, which, again, 50% of our peril quelled will give us 25% of our toughness back, which will end up being around 20 toughness on every venting shriek, which isn't too bad. We also get the Becalming Eruption, which decreases our peril generation by 1% for each enemy hit, stacking 25 times, and it lasts for 5 seconds, which is going to couple extremely well with our Brain Burst, because after we do our Eruption, we want to swap to Brain Burst, pop a bunch of elites real quick. You should be able to get 4 or 5 elites within that time frame of the Brain Burst and Venting Shriek combo, which will give you a bunch of Soul Blaze and a bunch of other stacks later down on the list that we'll explain. And then again, the crits, the Soul Blaze, everything just kind of rolls in on each other. Again, with Creeping Flames, we'll get 6 stacks of Soul Blaze on all the targets that we hit with the Venting Shriek, which means that everything there is basically going to burn and blitz away anyway. Then we go to our, again, Peril Generation. It's great. Keeps us from blowing our heads off. And then our health boost, and then Warp Rider, up to 20% damage from all sources based on current peril, which is going to be great for Soul Blaze because it does extra 20% damage for the Soul Blaze. Does it for our crits, does it for our melee, our ranged, everything, our warp. So now our Brain Burst is almost an extra 100% more damage, which is pretty crazy. Then we have to take Puppet Master. Sadly, this doesn't really do anything for us in particular, but it's still nice. Toughness damage reduction, again, solidity, again, not really needed, but it's kind of required to get the rest of the stuff that makes this build really cycle in on itself. Another 15 toughness, which brings us to our total of 90 toughness. Then we have our Warp Siphon, where if you kill an elite or a specialist enemy, gains your warp charge for 25 seconds, stacks 4 times. Then whenever you spend all your warp charges on your combat ability, it reduces the cooldown of that combat ability by 7.5%. Which, again, our combat ability gives us peril regen, gives us toughness regen, gives us soul blazes. It does all that, and it recycles in on itself. So whenever you Venting Shriek, assuming you have all the maximum warp charges, your Venting Shriek should only be between 5 to 9 seconds. At worst, it'll be 19 seconds. You'll just be constantly pumping warp siphons, brain bursts, soul blazes, crits, all that kind of stuff, as well as suppressing enemies. And it does a lot when it cycles in on itself like this. Next up, you're going to be taking Inner Tranquility, because again, we want that peril generation reduction, which is really, really good. We also want to increase all our base damage for each warp charge, which again, since we're taking 6 times 4 is about 24. So it's about 25% extra damage on top of everything else. So we're well above our 100% bonus damage for our brain burst, which means it should be up around 3,350 to almost 4,000 ish damage in between there. It won't ever be about 4,000, but it'll be like in between those two numbers on whenever it triggers with all the buffs active. Which, again, because everything's cycling in on each other, you should always have those buffs active anyway. In Fire Reborn, again, killing an enemy with Soul Blaze has 10% chance of granting you a Warp Charge, which is just great, because, again, our entire build's about Soul Blaze, so anytime that we Venting Shriek with 6 charges, we're pretty much instantly guaranteed to get at least 4 to our initial 6 back. And, again, this is where the whole loop plays with the Soul Blaze and everything else stacking on top of each other. And then we also just need our full 6 warp charges. So that way we can do more damage, quell more peril, get more toughness, recycle, and reset everything. So with the build explained, let's hop right into a Damnation Auric match. Alright, so we're hopping into another consignment yard on high intensity Damnation in Auric. Pretty much a fan favorite map for me. I love it regardless. It's always a blast running it. Just because, like, everything gets crazy and hectic in those tight corners. One of my favorites. So, as always, this is going to be a gameplay talkover. So if you don't want to listen to me and you just want to watch the gameplay to see how the build plays out, go for it. I'm just going to sit here, talk to you guys, just naturally, just kind of hang out. Talk about the upsides and the downsides of the builds as they come in. You know, nothing super crazy, super special. But I hope you guys enjoy. There will be minimal cuts as always. And this is my first run on Auric Damnation with this build. Hope you guys enjoy and maybe test it out, give it a try. I personally think it's a lot of fun. Starting off, we're just going down the corridor and taking care of things. As you notice, this is probably the lowest toughness build that you could be running, especially for something like this in this playstyle. Incredibly greedy. But that's just kind of like how I like to play. I like to play incredibly greedy. This also allows for multiple head bursts out the get-go. One of my favorite things is doing that. Which is why I'm happy that I have rotated back to Brain Rupture with the new nerf to Smite. Because while Smite was fun, I didn't feel like I did enough damage to really support and help the team more often than not. Whereas now with the Flame Staff, I feel like I can do both suppression, stagger, support. I feel like I can do everything, and it feels really, really good, and it feels very fluid to play it. Where, as you'll see a lot of the times, oh, I got netted right there. But a lot of the times you'll see me run through. I'll be head bursting very specific enemies. I'll swap to my staff whenever I need to. Also using power from the warp. You know, a lot of it's very, very good. As long as I have those charges, a lot of the soul flames come back. Hitting a lot of enemies also prevents that peril generation. You know, especially if there's a lot of elites, you can stay in Brain Burst with it, and you'll be able to head pop like 6 different enemies with it real quick. And it makes it really solid, really fun. Also remember to always swap to your staff when quelling. It is the fastest way to quell, even with perks that'll give you quelling speed. As long as you have your staff, your quell is just ridiculously good. I also like to run a lot at high peril if I can. I will only quell if I'm going down and I have no way to raise it back up realistically through damage. or through suppression or anything. It just adds a lot for me in particular. So this is where we take the second tier of the perk, where you'll see me charge this really quick, really fast. The reason you use the flamethrower is for hordes, but if you're going through a bunch of different random enemies, then you want to just use the flame swath, which is left click or just the primary attack. Reason being is that the flamethrower does a lot of additional damage, and it does more ticks. Whereas with the flame swath, it does more suppression, but less damage and less ticks. Which is, again, perfectly fine. You're just using it for suppression in the first place. And then if you need to get through the hordes of damage, then, it's the best. As you can see, I'm just listening, but you guys won't hear it in the audio just because I have it muted. Because I was talking to a friend the entire time while we were running these builds. As I do with all my Auric Damnations, I really only just kind of like talk with friends or talk with chat. And instead of subjecting you guys to that and not being able to actually, listen to the audio or just kind of talk about the gameplay or just the upsides and downsides to it, allows me to just kind of, lean back, watch my gameplay, comment on stuff that I did poorly, or just, tell you guys how many runs it took, all that kind of stuff. I like to keep it transparent with you guys. I like to give you guys my opinions or just anything like that. So one of the downsides to this build that I will talk about is melee. I don't like melee my Psyker. Even when I am cornered, if I can, I will refuse to melee. But as you'll see coming up, I instantly have to swap to melee just because I can't deal with the shotgunners anymore. They're just annoying the shit out of me. Even then, they're just all up in my face all the time, and it gets really annoying. But that's probably just a personal playstyle thing. I also just don't like some of the melee weapons that Psyker gets. I would prefer a lot of the other weapons for melee that they could get. I just haven't really rolled one that I like or found one that really mashes with my play style. I might go back to the Antax if I can get it on Psyker, but again, I don't really fuck with Psyker. Like I said, my bread and butter is my veteran and my zealot. Ogren's starting to get up there, it's starting to grow on me, but Psyker's always been kind of meh. It's always been very much a you do this, you do that. You do a lot of suppression. You can do a lot of damage, a lot of burst. As you can see, I had head pops. I had the bonus damage and the bonus quell speed and everything going up from that. We got separated because of a bomber. And a lot of mutants coming in during this Plague Ogre and stuff. And this got really, really poor really fast. But thankfully, our Zealot pretty much cleaned up a lot of the stuff, which was great, because that's exactly what you want your Zealot to do, while you're kind of on the back line trying to take care of the other stuff. Or you rotate, and you're the one taking care of stuff, and they're on the front line, or taking care of the hordes. It all really depends on who's doing what, and you kind of have to adapt freely on Psyker, which is kind of not what I'm good at. I'm very much an Unga Bunga, I do this, and I can also do a couple other things if I need to, but I prefer to just do this, which is like my Zealot and my Veteran. If I'm on Veteran, I'm on the long range snipes. I'm on the constant killing elites. I'm always aiming to take down whatever's in front of me. But definitely for Zealot, or definitely for Psyker, I'm very much a if I could clear hordes, that's what I'm gonna do. If I need to clear out some elites, I'll do that. That was a really bad fucking brain burst by me. I missed both maulers and somehow hit a gunner in the back that was running with the maulers. But yeah, this bull dude, he was fucking crazy with it. I don't remember seeing what melee weapon he used, but as you can see with Zelia, I think Zelia had our lowest damage in the group actually, and they were using the Devil's Claw. Which again, Devil's Claw,
not a good weapon simply because of the way that Fat Shark has designed it. If you look at what a lot of the weapons they have designed, they have these melee weapons that are very gimmicky, or they're very early on, and they might do heavy attack for like either their heavies or their lights, or they're kind of mixed between being close to each other in the same damage, but they don't perform very well, and they have very niche compatibility for it, which makes it really rough to kind of support them and do what needs to be done with them. So as you saw, like, we had a bunch of enemies coming in. There was a horde coming in. I heard the horde coming in. So my first initial reaction, I got really lucky there. My first initial reaction was to push through the wall, because a lot of the stuff that you can do with any class, grenades, Psyker flames, Psyker push, even some weapons the veteran has, like the plasma gun, can go through walls if enemies are close enough. Because walls are suggestions; they're not real. I mean, that's why you know, the monstrosities can go through walls. They're just suggestions; they're not real. Especially because there's nothing on the other side of those cracked walls, which I think is a missed opportunity from Fat Shark. They could have gave us like shortcuts from the monstrosity. If we killed them, we could use their like tunnel or whatever to go further into the level and skip some content. But Fat Shark doesn't want to speedrun it, which I think is a little weird for games like this. Like, if you look for Left 4 Dead 2 or Left 4 Dead in general, they have an AI director similar to this. If you are running XYZ, the AI director will try to either slow you down or speed you up to try and, you know, make you go. But Fat Shark has a permanent limiter on it. Like, if you're going way too fast, then Fat Shark thinks you need to slow down. It will send the whole kit and caboodle, fucking kitchen sink and pots at you. And I'm not a huge fan of that, just because I like to go fast. There's no reason to go slow in some of these missions. Even on Auric difficulty, sometimes the waves that you get, the content, and like all the different shotgunners and stuff, like, they don't even slow you down some of the time. So it's like, it feels like you're better off going fast and just kind of ignoring stuff. But that's just me personally. I know a lot of people also like to explore and gather everything. I definitely did that my first couple of months playing, but that's also because Fat Shark said that the story was being written by insert guy here, who is a Warhammer fan favorite. I fucked up. I jumped instead of dodging. Oh my god, I'm so bad. Thankfully, Zelia has a las gun. I think they have a las pistol. So I think they're trying to run a crit build, but not a crit build. It's a little weird. They're making it work, so that's all that matters, right? But he was supposed to be writing the story for this game. It was supposed to have like this epic storyline. It was supposed to be really good, and there were supposed to be like hints all over the map for stuff. Yeah, if you watch those cutscenes, those are the most generic fucking cutscenes ever, right? Kind of ruined the story for me. But I digress. They have added more cutscenes and stuff, and I don't know if they've added any of the story that the Warhammer writer was supposed to add. But like I said, you can find other YouTube videos about the situations with Fat Shark in the past year, where they've promised one thing and then given us another, or said one thing was going to happen and then the other thing didn't happen. So go figure. It's just kind of Fat Shark being Fat Shark. So if you notice a lot for this build in particular, I don't really... Oh, I got fucking bopped by that. I actually didn't hear that one. It kind of just fell on top of me, and I proceeded to hear the other ones. So that was good for me. But I don't do the objectives on Psyker. because a lot of my stuff, again, is suppression, but even though I'm doing damage, a lot of it is suppression. The problem was with this, by the time that I got to where I needed to be, and I was hoping the group was going to be with me, nobody was really hopping on the objective, and I was having trouble pushing to it, so when I finally got the chance, I decided to do it. But I would always recommend that you let other people do it if you're playing Psyker, because more often than not, no matter what Psyker you're playing, you're going to have some form of suppression or CC, or just giant wave clear, no matter what build you kind of roll with. The effectiveness of it might vary by user or by abilities, but for the most part, it's pretty much you being the suppression or the CC for the team. So it's always very nice to let everybody else do the objective so that we keep CCing and you don't have to worry about anybody faltering or falling behind or anything like that. Here is where I pulled a really bad mistake, but at the same time, this was the best option and choices that I could make, which was to just pull back and hope that my teammates could come recover for me. I think they didn't, but I think I was able to pull back enough and then pull towards them. Obviously, I'm biased. I don't know what was going on because they were in front of me and I was pushed back. And even though I was communicating with one of my teammates, I still wasn't hearing back from them on what was happening at the moment. So it made it feel a little bit like I either did poorly or I did well. Yeah, as you can see by that brief synopsis of damage, Bull really close to me. I was barely ahead. Dank was doing a lot, and then Zelia again. That claw sword, that last pistol, that build really wasn't doing anybody any favors. Okay, so they're using the heavy eviscerator. Yeah. So that explains their high damage, was the heavy eviscerator. I don't know what their secondary is. I know a lot of zealots, for some fuck off reason, really like revolver. I still don't see the appeal of the revolver. I really wish I did. Everybody swears by the revolver being like the best fucking weapon in the game, and I don't see it, man. Yep, they're using revolver. See, if the revolver was more reliable in horde situations or anything like that, I can see it being better. I see it as very much you pick off a single target that needs to die in that very moment and you shoot it, like a poxburster or a sniper. But more often than not, like I said, you should expect your teammates, if they're playing a certain class, to pick up the slack, whether it's a veteran or a gun ogre or even a psyker like yourself. So that's why on Zealot I run a lot of medium range stuff. The team's a little split, but that's okay. Everybody's pulling back together. Everybody's handling it fairly well, and as you can see, I'm really papaying on that. But Bull's able to take it down with 2 revolver shots. Again, why I just think revolver's kind of meh. The ammo to cost percentage on shots to kill shit is really, really high, especially with his ammo and mag capacity on certain classes like Zealot. Makes it really, really rough. So now we got to do cleanup. Since I got brain bursts, what I want to do is just kind of target all the elites. Oddly enough, like again, I haven't really played Psyker, so I'm getting a lot of these new early game penances that you have to use specific stuff for, like brain burst. And I get these on a lot of the classes throughout a lot of these videos, except for Zealot, just because I don't really play anything but Zealot right now. But these builds can pretty much carry anybody through anything. even with the punch through, I still find that the revolver is just laughable damage. Still better than the last pistol, but I guess the last pistol crits are pretty good, because I've seen a couple of people rocking the last pistol lately, and they're running like crit builds with it, and it looks really fucking solid. I personally wouldn't run it, but the way that I've seen people been running it is really nice. Yeah, as you can see, Bulls pulled ahead of me with that Eviscerator and Revolver. Which again, I really fucked up here. So the other two ran ahead of me and they left a Dread Gunner there, which kept me pushed into the flames, which was fucking awful. So I got my ass handed to me and I got put down in the dirt, Bully McGuire style. It's a Spider-Man 3 reference from the Raimi films, in case nobody understands that reference. But that's fine. I'm old. I completely understand that a lot of what I reference is whatever. Also, the hitbox there. If you notice that I flame swapped the sniper like 5 times, still didn't fucking do anything. What can you do, right? It's so annoying sometimes. That's also another thing that's kind of like made a lot of the penance videos that I like to do kind of obsolete, is just because of the hitboxes. And I've tried to find cheese methods for it with the new patch 14 update. So if there's any penances you need for any class, keep an eye out. Drop a sub. Wait for those videos to come out. And then if you can get them through the penance videos, awesome. I'll be happy for you. And then if you don't care about any of the other content afterwards, feel free to unsubscribe. That's how I rolled on YouTube a lot of the time, and that's how I roll with a lot of things in life. If something is useful for a little bit and then there's nothing else that kind of interests you from it, you can get rid of it. It's like a car, a book, stuff like that. I'm still kind of holding the back line just because everybody else up front is doing so much front-loaded heavy damage, so there's no reason for me to be up forward. So once I finally got back to those couple of 3 that I need to clear out, then it's whatever. As you can see, Dink is running, I think that was the Columnus auto gun this time, and that thing does some nasty damage, which I was surprised about. I was very adamant about that gun just being absolute dog shit. But he's nailing them. And then Zelia, with that last pistol, was able to hit that target from 60 meters away and kill it in a couple of hits. Granted, it's a sniper, and on Damnation it only has 500 HP, but on that distance, that ability to hit that far and be able to still kill with a las pistol really surprised me. I'm still very much adamant that it's a okay weapon and not something that you would want to take in on Auric Damnation for veteran, but for Zealot, I could see it working, especially crit Zealots. I'm still not a big fan of crit Zealots, but that's mostly because crit Zealots are usually bottom of the list for DPS and killing things, just because the bleed damage is incredibly low. It's lower than Soul Flame damage, and Soul Flame damage, even with me staying up close to Bull, and damage is really... but it does suppression, and that's kind of the main focus. You want a little bit of damage, a little bit of suppression, help everybody out. Hiding inside the train car here used to be meta. It still works quite a bit of times. I've been using it a little bit more just because of Auric difficulty. Just kind of funnels everything together, and you don't really need to worry about a ton. So it allows me to focus on taking out a few things here and there, like these scab shotgunners, and push, and then try to focus on those. Even though I'm burning alive, getting those shotgunners dead is awesome. Unfortunately, I'm the only one still left in here, so I don't think I go down, but I think I clutch this up just because I have so much flame suppression going on from the Terrifying Barrage, And whenever you Terrify and Barrage anything that's ranged, if it has a melee option, it'll immediately go into the melee. So you don't need to worry about like gunners trying to, gun you down. You don't need to worry about shotgunners trying to gun you down or reapers or anything like that. They'll just rush you instead, and then you can just kind of kill them in melee. But again, a downside to our build, ironically, is melee. But again, the flamethrower secondary ability of this, if you spam it, get it up really fast, you can just basically almost have infinite fire spewing out. Keeps your peril really low, but it still puts out a fuck ton of DPS. Sadly, team is so far pushed forward, we're having shit spawn behind us now. And unfortunately for me, that means I'm going to get the brunt of shit falling in on me because I have 3 different directions. So I have 3 different ways everything's going to fall on me. I really resisted using my force push. Ugh. I really regretted not using my force push, but at the same time, it allowed me to keep my stacks and use the force push when I needed it. So that was really more beneficial. Oh, yeah. My ISP is broken, so this probably didn't help. Every so often, my ISP just completely cracks out on me. No matter what I do, it just goes down. I have no idea what to do. I've changed out my router, changed out my modem. I think I just have to call them and be like, hey guys, listen. I either need to switch off you guys, or you guys need to come fix the wiring or something, because that's crazy how often it happens in the middle of matches. I was surprised even with my my run here that I had it happening and I didn't get absolutely obliterated. So I completely fucked up here. I went over and I didn't have my peril push, but that's okay. I walked forward into the monstrosity because the perils of the warp explosion does a fuck ton of damage. It does anywhere from 800 or 500 to 800, so I just walked forward to just do the damage onto the Ogre. It was just really bad management on my part, but I also was kind of getting swarmed, so exploiting myself actually helped the teammate and helped kill the monstrosity more than it hindered us. And sometimes that's like the benefit of looking at it that way. If I stayed alive, then we might have got swarmed just because nobody else was taking care of the hordes. That was my fault. That was my bad entirely. I should have been focused more on the hordes than I should have been on the monstrosity, especially with Bull being the fucking god that he was on the Zealot, or god that she was on the Zealot. So they beat me by about 4k DPS, so that wasn't too bad, especially keeping up with a Psyker, or a Zealot rather. Zealot to Psyker. Dank being a support build, almost bringing out 400k across the board, and as you can see, Zelia crit build just did fuck all. It really just like 285k. It's really bad compared to everybody else, when it's like, what, 4, 8, 12? Plus they're two, almost 300k, so that was 1.5 million damage we needed to deal out towards all the enemies. It was just really weak build. But that's okay. So, I hope you guys liked the content, hope you guys enjoyed the build, and I hope to catch you guys in the next one. Bye guys.